What do you do when your coach asks you to teach jiu-jitsu? Okay, I'm just going to say that if you want to see what we were doing, stick around to the end and I'll put it at the yeah. All right. Okay. Welcome to Beauty and the Gi, the podcast about jiu-jitsu and so much more. I'm Jen Eads, a very tired blue belt because I just finished rolling at class. Oh, and I'm full of curiosity and questions about jiu-jitsu and so much more.
And I'm AJ Clearman, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, freezing because the air is blasting and I can't train, and obsessed with jiu-jitsu.
All right. Very good. So we've got very hot, very cold, and
we're like the little angel and the devil.
Pretty much. I know which one I feel like today. What do you do when your coach asks you to teach jiu-jitsu? Do you panic or do you feel completely confident in your ability to teach?
I'm guessing most people fall somewhere in the middle, but closer to panic.
Yeah, you're probably, I'd say, on the confident side.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I teach a ton.
I'm more on the panic side.
Yeah.
No, I was just totally asking for a friend.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So in this episode, we're talking about teaching jiu-jitsu, giving you some essential tips if you are new to jiu-jitsu instruction.
Teaching.
Yeah, to teaching. Yeah. Also, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I have a feeling we probably have some new listeners after Role Model Grappling Camp.
Yes, welcome.
So welcome. We have a starter pack for you. There's a link to it in the episode description, or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll have the link in the description there.
Excellent. You're so handy.
Sometimes I'm handy at podcasting more so than teaching jiu-jitsu. I could teach you how to podcast all day long.
Oh, no. That's good because I was just thinking like I'm the one that mostly teaches jiu-jitsu and you do all the podcasting. But if you start teaching all of the jiu-jitsu, what good am I?
Oh, you're good. You are wise in the ways of jiu-jitsu.
Doesn't help for the podcast, but for the YouTube, here I am.
Perfect. I love it. So you've been doing this a while.
Yes.
What do you think makes a good instructor?
I mean, we can talk about like the content aspect of it, but I think the start of it is just caring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast with the camp kind of recap, but how much the instructors cared what they were teaching and that people got something out of it. And I think just caring is the biggest thing. We didn't get to talk much about like Risser's session. I couldn't take 2 steps without somebody stopping me. Like I was trying to walk around and help a little. And people kept stopping and saying, you know, like what a good job she was doing. And Danielle Guevara, who's a black belt in Texas, was saying like she has thought of every question ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
So like kind of knowing like what people are going to ask. I think another thing is like not feeling like you have to know the answer.
Right.
Being able to be like, either let's try that and see if it works.
That's my favorite answer.
It
usually
is mine too. Like, let's see. Oh no, don't do that. Or, that worked, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, that's not my favorite, but you can play with it, see if it works for you, that kind of thing. But it's just overall caring about what you're teaching and that people are actually learning the thing from you, that they're getting the details and being willing to be wrong. Being willing to not know and to bring people back and work on some of the details they may have missed the first time.
Yeah. I love that because at camp, when we would come back and they'd be like, oh, I should have, or maybe I forgot to mention this or that, because it's always like, there's multiple people that probably ran into that same thing. Like, why am I not getting this?
Yeah. And from an outside perspective, because, you know, I wasn't teaching at all. I was just watching. And although I'm not a judgy person as like judging you as a person, I am very judgy about instruction, right?
Yeah.
Like I've been to, I don't know how many seminars, I don't know how many camps, like a million, right? Not really, but a lot.
Close.
So I am very judgy. I'm evaluating constantly.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a nicer word.
Right. Yes.
We're evaluating.
Yeah, I'm evaluating. And a lot of times it's not that the instructor didn't say that thing. They probably did, but then they realize that a lot of people are having the same issue. So like they bring them back. And I love when they take ownership for it.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, I must not have said, like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry I didn't say this, or I'm sorry I didn't emphasize this. I heard them say it, but like most people might not have, or they glazed over it or whatever. So I like that too. It's just caring and ownership.
I think there's a lot to standing up. I mean, there's the nerves because there's the regular public speaking aspect of it, which is its own scary piece. But then I think when you pair that public speaking piece of it with the jiu-jitsu piece of it, especially if you're not confident in your jiu-jitsu or your public speaking, then that is like a recipe for complete panic.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to scare people. When I introduced Sarah Friday night, I was saying most people will never get to teach on a stage this big.
True.
Like most classes are going to have a handful of people to, maybe 40 people or something.
Yeah.
But like to be able to teach to 220, 250 women is something most people will never get to do. And you have to be able to kind of command the stage then too.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So public speaking is a big part of it. Energy is a big part of it.
Huge.
Right? Like if you see somebody teach that's just very monotone and, like that's, you lose interest really fast. Even if what you're teaching has value, if you can't keep my attention for it, it doesn't matter.
If you're not excited about it, I'm not going to be excited about it.
Yes.
I need that. Well, and I think the part of that's the caring too. That comes through, I think, in your energy level.
Yeah.
And I would think, was Risser just exhausted
putting out
energetically after that?
Yeah, I'm sure she probably was. At first you're kind of on a high from it, right? But then we had to clean up. So even though, yes, she was exhausted, she still had a lot of working her tail off for the next 24 hours, picking up everything, bringing it all back to the gym, all of that. So probably by a couple days afterwards, then she's really crashing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Which, by then you're back to work and you're just like, okay, I have to pay attention to my real job.
Oh, right. That thing.
But yeah, I think, like anytime I teach on that level, it is just a different kind of exhaustion that you gave so much. When I taught at Alchemize Camp, my Whoop it's like my little thing that like measures my heartbeat, had its highest strain it's ever had. Cause I was just like running around teaching, and I wasn't able to drill then really either because of my shoulder. So it's interesting that, it is a lot of work.
I was nervous just for my little kickoff session. That always makes me super nervous.
How come? You're so good at that.
It's probably because I care.
Yes. Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
You just want to show up and you want people to get something out of it.
Yeah.
And I think if you think about the teaching aspect of it more so than like what I was doing, like I just want people to have fun, get something out of it, be like, oh yeah, I need to remember to not be a hateful little troll this weekend.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. If that's the one thing you got out of my session, amazing. But I think as something like camp, you're teaching to such a variety of ages, body types, experience. So how do you navigate all of that?
Yeah.
That would completely freak me out as well.
I mean, some moves don't really matter as far as that goes. I mean, also sometimes it's knowing the little different things. Like Risser, for example, she was very good at being like, I have short arms. So this is how I do it. If you have longer arms, maybe try to do it this way. So she was already talking about different like body types a little bit. Or for the higher ranks, you can play around with this knee bar right here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just take the pass. Those kinds of things. So I think adding little details that, especially for the higher ranks, that you can just kind of like throw at them without really saying much. Like you can say, this is here if you want it, and move on.
Yeah.
Then you didn't confuse the lower ranks that are like, I'm sorry, what?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a really important way to navigate. And I also think that most of especially brown and black belts in the room, know that in general, you're teaching for the lower belts, right? Like most of it is for the white and blue belts.
Yeah.
Purple belts, you're kind of on the line there, right? Like you're definitely going to maybe pick up a piece or two, but it's probably something you've seen now. one more little part about Mercer, is that she was teaching octopus guard, which is not something everyone's seen. Right. And even like some of the higher ranks, like Missy Bays was saying like, people have tried to teach that to me before and I've always hated it. I just didn't get it. I didn't, and she was like, after that, I feel like it's my jam. Like this is
nice.
Like, so even a black belt, you can still teach.
Yeah.
Like I'm not done learning because I'm a black belt.
Right.
I feel like I spent most of research session going, that's what she does to me.
How nice for you.
Right? Yeah. Oh, that's what's happening. But I think that most of them recognize that you're teaching mostly for the lower ranks, but they can still get a lot out of it, right? Like you can see how people are teaching things, how they command the room, how they're breaking stuff down, all of those things. When I go to other camps, I am looking at the specifics of how they're teaching and what I can take from that, what I like and what I don't like.
Right.
So
what advice do you have for somebody that is getting ready to teach their first class? Either like coach is sick, somebody's got to fill in and you're the highest rank, tag, you're it.
Tag, you're it. One, I think have a canned class that is like, this is what I'm going to teach if ever it's like a pop-up quiz, right?
Right. Yeah.
For me as purple belt, that's when I started having the random moments of like, all right, you're teaching, and it was always like ashi to the sweep to the ankle lock. That was my canned class that if it was like a random, like, all right, you're teaching and you got to do it now, like no preparation time.
Yeah.
Right. So have something that's kind of canned in that way. And it doesn't have to be technique. It can be, all right, we're going to work on grip fighting. And then you're going to work on your favorite pass. And you can do it more like, all right, this is a drill class. Like do your favorite passing, do your favorite mount escape, run through every submission, like that kind of thing. That can be fine too. You don't have to be teaching the technique.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be so much pressure on yourself.
Okay.
Right. But something like where you were, where you had some time to prepare, you knew I was having surgery, ask for a curriculum.
Yes.
Which you did. And then plan out the class. Know that you know the move ahead of time. Know that, you know the details. People are going to ask questions you don't know. That's okay. They are going to also expect that. They don't expect you to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Do they expect me to have all the answers? Most of the time. Although I think by now, most of my students are like, okay, she's going to figure it out as we go. Figure it out. But like I am fully willing to be like, I don't know, let's try it.
Yep.
And usually my uke is like, that sucked. I hated that more.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Like whatever. Or I'll be like, no, that doesn't work. But get the gist of what you're teaching, maybe practice it. A lot of times I'll tell people like while everyone's warming up, grab one of the people and go, let me do this on you real fast. That helps for a couple things. One, it helps you have the move fresh in your brain. And then it helps your uke know how they're supposed to react.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then while everyone's drilling the first move, grab that person, do it once, the second move on them once. So that same thing, right? You have it fresh in your brain. You know where you're going next. Those are some things I think can help.
I like those.
Plan it.
I have done so much. I write it out in my notebook, like from 6 to 6:05 or whatever. Like we're doing warm-ups. And then what are we going to drill? And all of that kind of stuff. Because as long as I can look at it and have a plan, even if we veer off of it a little bit, I at least know it's like a game. Oh my gosh. It's like back to when we were at Rachel's camp, and it depends is not.
Yeah.
That's not your plan.
That's not your plan.
That is not your plan.
If this is what I'm going to do. Something happens, like we can alter it, but this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And not that I am the end all be all for how a class should be run, but I have been teaching a very long time. I've been running consistent weekly classes for 11 years now, teaching more than that, but at least that. And so I think kind of watch what your instructor is doing and try to emulate that a little bit. Now, can you make changes for things that you think would be different or better? Sure. But probably there's a reason I do things.
Right.
Okay. If it's an hour-long class, you can notice 5 minutes, I'm doing warm-ups. Maybe 10 if we're doing like the grip fighting or something like that, right? Certain amount of time for technique. by 40 after the hour, we're starting rounds.
Yeah.
So paying attention to the time is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the clock.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Yeah. What do you do if you're teaching and there's a higher rank
you teach. You teach. I mean, if they want to teach or something like that, if that's, then fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it is important to me that we all respect each other,
mm-hmm.
right? It would be absurd for me to think just because you're a lower rank, you can't teach me something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I might get a detail that's different than the way I do it, or I like the way you word something. I took a lot this weekend a couple weekends ago at camp where somebody would say something and I'd be like, oh, I really like how she described that. And
mm-hmm.
I'd write it down, right?
Yeah.
Like I like that wording of it. But yeah, I think unless they're like, oh, well, I'm the higher rank and I get to teach, or like, can I teach? I really wanted to teach this.
Yeah.
Like if there's a conversation and they want to teach, that's fine. But in general, you teach. Like I said, I've been teaching since really right after I got my blue belt. And definitely as a purple belt, I would have black belts in my class.
Mm-hmm.
And you just do it.
All right. There you have it, friends, if you're feeling nervous about that.
Yeah.
Going back to something you said about hearing somebody say something differently, one of the things that I love that Risser did is at one point we were drilling, but she's like, we're going to play a game. And I was like, well, playing a game sounds so much more fun than drilling.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
I love games.
I love games. And I was just immediately, because by Sunday morning, everybody's tired.
Yep.
We've drilled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's a game to be played.
Yes. Yeah.
That's different.
Exactly. And she did it only like a couple moves in.
Yeah.
So it just really like amped up the energy a little bit.
I think it did. It helped me immensely.
That's awesome.
Yes. What if you don't feel confident in your own jiu-jitsu? So how could you possibly step on the mat and teach it?
I think that you cannot feel confident in your overall jiu-jitsu because I think most people don't. Confidence.
Fair.
I mean, honestly, confidence is the thing that we all probably struggle with the most.
Mm-hmm.
When we did Rachel's Master Worlds camp a few months back, like that was one of the main things. She was like, every single paper I read talked about how they weren't confident.
I was surprised because I really kind of just thought it was me.
Right? Yeah. We all feel alone in that.
Yeah.
But everybody struggles with their confidence 100%. So not everybody, but pretty much everybody. And the ones that you don't think do still do.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to be confident in your jiu-jitsu. You just have to know that you have something that you can add to their game.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that your coach obviously feels confident enough in you to ask you to cover or to teach or whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be your own confidence. It can be someone else's. I say that a lot when my students are competing. Stop listening to the voice in your head and start listening to my voice in your head.
That's a much nicer voice.
Right? So it's kind of the same thing. Just take some time to like recognize that there's no way I'd have you out there teaching if I didn't think you could do it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. I don't expect you to have full confidence in your jiu-jitsu. Just show some.
How do you think teaching makes you better?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think you can answer this best. I mean, really, like, how has teaching made you better in the last month?
Well, just yesterday. Until yesterday, I have been completely like, oh God, what am I going to teach? And not total panicky, but very nervous about who's going to be there. What am I going to show? Blah, blah. Are they going to get anything out of this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's already hard enough that it's 6 a.m.
Right?
I feel like if somebody's showing up at 6 a.m., they need to walk away with something.
Or they're too asleep to even know.
There is that. Okay, that also helps. But yesterday was the first time I finally felt like I walked in with like, oh, this is what I'm showing. I'm going to do what Sarah taught us Friday night. And that is the plan. That is what we're doing. I made notes, very detailed notes, and we did it.
So would you say preparation is key?
I would say preparation is key. I was also wondering if maybe I had some of that leftover Tina Turner confidence.
Oh my God.
That came in with me.
Yes.
Because I just walked in like, we are doing this. And I feel good about what we're doing.
If you don't know what we're talking about, definitely check out. You posted the whole video on your.
I know it's on at Brassy Broad Jen on Instagram.
Excellent.
Yeah. It's there. There was a lip sync battle. Things happened.
She won. She raised more money than all of the other entries combined.
Oh, that's good.
That's really good. You're fantastic. Well, I was like, thank God she went last. Okay. Brisser was like, she should have gone earlier. Everybody like got so amped up afterwards. And I was like, but would you want to follow that act? No, absolutely not. Nobody wants to follow that. That was fabulous. But yeah, so preparation is obviously going to make you better. We talk about like taking notes. And just the act of writing it down helps you remember. So if you're going to write down what you're teaching, then that's another step in remembering, right? I also say that I feel like I know, like I'm good at details for jiu-jitsu because I talked it out the whole time that I was learning it. Right. So, I when first learning something, I'm writing it down. When I'm first drilling it, I'm like, okay, she puts her leg here. I what's that word called? I narrate it.
Oh,
gracious. Okay. I narrate the whole time, whether that's in my head or out loud. Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm just repeating it over and over. That's what you're doing teaching, right?
Yeah.
You are repeating the move over and over.
Yes.
One of the number one things that I haven't mentioned that I think is really, really important is do the move at least 3 times. Like teach it at least 3 times.
Okay.
I'll come in sometimes for a night class and they'll show it once and they'll be like, all right, ready? And I'm like, no one's ready. No one. Like we've fully forgotten everything that's happened. So, like at least 3 times. The first time you're trying to maybe you're trying to watch. And the second time, maybe you're trying to write it down. The third time you're getting the details you missed the first couple times. Like you need to hear it over and over again. Yeah. Don't assume once or twice is enough.
Well, because I feel like sometimes I'm watching hands, sometimes I'm watching feet, sometimes I'm watching like just an overall, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see it multiple
Absolutely.
times. And from different angles.
Yes.
Always.
Yep. And I just as a thing, again, I said, I'm not the end all be all for how a class is taught, but I do think teaching on a line is much better because then I can be in charge of what angle everyone is seeing.
Right.
I can make sure that if I'm rotating, you're seeing the things you need to see. Where if we're in a circle, it gets confusing about which direction you're rotated in already, or, who's seen what or anything. So I do think teaching on a line can be extremely beneficial.
I think it also really helps me. I will have retained the most information from this camp because I'm going to teach things that I learned at this camp. Yep. So I will have to watch the video. I can't tell you how many videos I have on my phone that I've never gone back and watched. Yep. This time I have to. Yeah. Because there's purpose. Yeah. And I have to make notes about it. So this will be the most information I have retained from camp ever. In the 5 years that I've been going.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to know jiu-jitsu.
Yes, you are, which is going to make you more confident in your jiu-jitsu, confident in your teaching.
Exactly. So I'm kind of excited about it now.
Good.
I'm not so dreading Thursday.
Good. Excellent.
And I feel like that's progress.
Yes. I think another little just added thing that I really like, and I know a lot of instructors like, is some sort of count clap, right? Like the 1, 2, 3 clap. Very pitch perfect, like on 3 or after 3. But I think that makes people's brains switch from learning to doing.
Yes.
And sometimes, if I stop the class in the middle, I'm like, just look up here real fast, do this. And then they all just stare at me like, okay, now how do we proceed? And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And then they're like, okay, now we can start doing the move. Because it's so ingrained in us. But I think that's really helpful to switch that.
Yes.
So that you get into doing mode and kind of switch your brain there.
Okay. Are we going to call that the on the mat tip?
Ooh, yeah, let's do that.
That's the on the mat
tip. Done.
Okay. All right. And the off the mat tip is
preparation is key.
Preparation is key. Look at us.
On and off the mat tips.
They're back, friends.
They're back.
You can thank
Guess
Megan
who's back?
for that.
Back again.
Oh, also, I have to say somebody else's name, like first and last name, just so that they hear it. Amy Dillon.
She needed to be called out by name, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I had so many fun conversations at camp hanging out.
I love that.
So yeah, there will just be random little things that pop up throughout the podcast. But yeah, on and off the mat tips are back.
Nice. Join us for camp next year. So the dates are July 11th through the 13th. So it's basically the same weekend that it was this past camp. But join us. I was watching a TikTok video of this woman that like they literally just got off the cruise and she was booking her next cruise. And her husband was making fun of her. And she's like, the anticipation is part of the fun, right?
True.
Like you love knowing that this is coming up and planning for it and getting excited about it. So like register now.
Yeah.
Get registered, start getting excited. I know it's a year away, but I also know that year will fly by and you'll be so excited to get to just plan and be hopeful. And
do you already have the theme?
I have like 5 working themes. So give me some time to decide what exactly I want to do. A month before camp, Risser and I started a Camp 2025 note in our phones. And so it is like scroll long.
I'm sure.
And we have like 5 different theme options in that. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Come hang out with us. If you can't come hang out with us in person, you can hang out with us on Instagram at Beauty and the Gi Podcast. I'm also hanging out there at Brassy Broad Jen.
And I'm AJ Klingerman. Everywhere you go, maybe even on TikTok, or maybe I'm roll_model. You'll find me.
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
And if you have ideas for episodes or questions, send us a DM. We absolutely love hearing from you.
Definitely.
All right, friends. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you
on the mat.
Beauty and the Gi is a production of the Brassy Broadcasting Company.
And brought to you by Role Model Grappling.
Yay!
Dun, 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 dun,
da, 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 da. Somebody said that they heard the
clock go off.
Yeah. And that's immediately what they thought.
That's every time it goes off in here. That's what I think.
Makes my heart so happy.
Me too.
Bye.
It's like we're having a silent disco, but it's just the music in our heads.
Right? Always.
Nothing is playing. We're just vibing.
Okay. Teaching jiu-jitsu. Or no, actually, time out. I'm starting this whole thing over again because I wrote down a question. The hook to suck the listener in.
Bring them in.
Bring them in.
Make them want to continue listening.
This is our content for our Instagram, is all the outtakes.
Bloopers, exactly.
Perfect. All right.
B-roll.
B-roll. B-roll. That's what it is. B-roll. Yes. Thank you. Okay.